right, welcome everybody to the Endgame Exclam at the St. Louis Chess Club today. My name is Vitaly Neimer and I'm going to be your Grandmaster resident. First of all, I would like to show you real quick my, my new updated website. Actually, it got some new features over here. There are reviews on the left. So if you will have time at any point, write me a small review. Also, you can send me a quick message over here. I don't promise to respond immediately, but I will do my best. And then you have this nice guy pop out over here on the left side, which asks you to give a like for Facebook. And if you click on it, it's actually going to be, usually it's going to be opening up the Facebook page. I just wanted to show you quick, and the Facebook page is called Powerful Chess. So facebook.com/powerfulchess, and you can see different reviews and news and so on. I also published a few articles lately about chess and comics. Also, how to dress up like a grandmaster. You can, yes, and not always, but yes, make sure that you follow the rules of the shorts. But yeah, you basically want to be comfortable, wear something comfortable to beat your opponents. Okay. Alrighty, so that's pretty much about me, about my website, about my Facebook page. So now we can go in and dive into chess. And today we are going to discuss some endgames. And today we are going to see some Mighty Knight endgames, which are going to give you some nightmares. Okay, so let's look at our first position here. It looks like we usually know that endgames with a king and a knight on our side are actually drawish. But in this current position, black actually has 2 pawns for the knight, and they look pretty dangerous. I mean, if I bring this pawn to g3, g2, I'm even going to queen and win the game. So it is white to move. You are going to be playing white. You might need to save the game. If you succeed in winning the game, then you even get a point. So good luck and take your best shot. It's white to move. So knight f6 if g5.
Then I bring the knight in front.
King h1.
But all you've done is really just play check, right? Like, you're gonna find like the draw.
King h1, king f1. Yeah,
And if h2? Knight f2, very good. So if you are playing as white, it's actually pretty easy to win with knight f6, g5, knight to g4, check, king to h1, and now king to f1, which puts black into Zugzwang. He has to play h2, and now the knight is jumping to f2 and creates a checkmate. Very good. Now let's try to solve the same position, but it is going to be black to move. Now, as black, I would probably play, my first move would be king to h1. So think about this one. It is might be still winning. So give your best shot. Knight f6, the first move. Okay, and if I play h2. G5. G4. G3 check. Very good. All right, let's see this variation. Knight f6. So same idea. Knight f6. If g5, then knight g4, h2, knight e3, g4, and knight f1, or knight f5, g3, and checkmate. All right, very good. This is the first variation. What about after knight f6? I can actually play king to h2. I'm going to try to make your life more difficult. Nothing personal, just my job.
Check on G4.
If knight g4, king h1,
King G3.
king g1,
Knight takes pawn. Oh, I can't take the pawn.
yeah, your knight is on g4, right?
Yeah.
Well, the king can take the pawn.
Yes.
But then my king is running king f1.
Yes, and it's going to run, yeah.
Let's see this real quick. King g3, king g1. Freedom. Do not let the king out of his prison.
Knight e4.
Knight e4, king h1,
And then knight g3.
king h2, king h1. No, king h2.
Oh.
The mate will only occur whenever the h pawn is moving, right? So we have to put him in a Zugzwang. The only way to put him in a Zugzwang, the h pawn, we also have to put this pawn on g6 into a Zugzwang. Knight e4, g4, king h1. Okay, g5, g4, h2, wait, that's it. I have no moves now. Your king is on f1.
No, I didn't take the pawn. The pawn is in g5, right?
The pawn is not on. You didn't take. Okay, let's look at this. So knight g4 is the first move. That's correct. King h1, and then what did you say?
King f1.
King f1 is also correct. Very good. So now I cannot play h2 because of the mate.
Right.
So g5,
Now you made the
Knight
other way.
e3.
knight e3. I guess here I will play king h2.
And king f2. And now knight g4 again. So he's got to play h2 now. Then knight e3. Knight f1. And there it is.
All right, and here's the checkmate. Very good. There's another solution. After g5, white can also play king f2, h2, and now knight e3. So the same idea pretty much. And now forcing me to play g4, and now knight f1. Okay, so very nice. So even in such endgames where we usually are not so common with the knight versus pawns, you can still win.
Yeah.
Now here's another theoretical position which is good to know. This case, you are actually going to be white and you're going to have a knight and a pawn just against the king. But it is going to be, excuse me, black to move. So what do you guys think? If it's a black to move, does white win here? So there is actually a way for black to make it draw. But you have to make the correct move. King f7, and if knight c7. Okay, knight e8. Knight g7. Knight e6.
just bounces back and forth.
Yeah. So that's a pretty easy one, right? So the question is, where should we put our piece, our knight? Do we put it on f7? Oops. On f7 or f8? So the one that makes a draw is king to f7, because now once the knight comes, he's going to check the king. Oops. Where's my knight? I lost the knight. Became a ghost. Check. Yeah, and now king f7, and apparently there is no win. On the other hand, if the king would go to f8, this would be winning for white. Because probably just knight e6, for example.
Oh.
And the knight is taking the square from the king. The king has to take, and
Game over.
yeah.
Only that one move.
All right, so there is another very famous position. Let's see if you guys will know about this one. Now in this case, I'm going to give you knight 2 pawns against just 1 pawn. Now this position, it is white to move. So white to move, and obviously white is trying to draw. So think about this one. How can we draw? So let's start with the first move. So everybody think about the first move, because there is only one drawing move here for white. Okay. So think about the first move, and then we're going to continue later.
Well, I'm saying d6 because the king can come from behind and take the pawn without the knight protecting it.
Okay, that's possible. So I guess the difference, we have to find a difference between king b6, c6, and d6. Obviously, those are the only options that we have, because otherwise the knight would move, and there's no way that the king can capture the pawn. So the question is, what's the difference between those 3 moves? 2 of them are losing, 1 of them is drawing.
Man, I'm not seeing a difference.
Yeah, doesn't look like.
White draws these, right?
Yes, apparently this is actually a draw. Well, otherwise I won't put it, but yes, white is drawing this. Okay, so let's so I heard some people said king c6, right? Some people said king d6. Anyone for king b6? No, and that's correct. So king b6 will probably very easily lose, because the knight will come and defend the pawn from e4.
And the king can't get to it.
Right, the king can get to the knight, and especially our king comes very, very fast to defend the knight. And this position is just completely lost. Now, for the same reasons, king d6 is also losing, because that's correct, knight to a4. And the king has to go to d5, king g7, king c4, king, he has to go to b5. Then the king is supporting the pawn. So this is lost. So therefore, the correct move is king to c6. You guys were right. Okay. So let's see what's the difference. Well, if knight a4, then king b5. I'm going to win the pawn. So the best move for black is to play knight to e4. Now, white is obviously playing king to d5. The only move. So we have to continue attacking both the pawn and the knight on e4. Now, if black gives away the knight, then white has enough time to capture the knight, capture this pawn, and come back for the pawn. So for example, and he's just right in time.
Because the king can't approach the pawn on h2.
He can.
He can, but you'll lock him in with the king left
There, yeah.
and king f2 or king f1. So this is a draw. Okay, so let's say we are playing black and we would like to keep our knight, but now the knight starts his hunt for the h2 pawn. So let's say the knight goes to g5. Now we have to take the pawn, otherwise we have no chance of fighting all those pieces. And knight to f3. So what to do now?
I thought you were asking.
Yeah, so if king d5, what happens? So if I take the pawn on h2, what will be your next move?
I'd have to get over there to. I have to. e4.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so the first tip for today is that when the king is fighting against a knight, you want to put the king just diagonally over in front of the. It's kind of the diagonal opposition that we have,
Yeah,
because because from here the king is going to control those both squares. Now the knight is going to go to a different other way, but that just makes much more sense to bring the king as close as possible. King c4 would just lose to knight h2 and just knight to g4. Now even, well, in this case the king is not even close to getting to the knight, so to the pawn. So king to d5 is the correct move. The knight takes the pawn and king to e4. That's correct. Now, okay, so how should black play? Again, his king is very, very far, so the king does not matter so much. So let's say the knight is going to g4. Now, it actually looks like this position is completely lost for white, right? But the best way for white to continue would be, well, the only move, king f3, right? Because black is threatening to play h2. So the only way to stop the pawn is king to f3.
He makes it to h1 and draws.
So now, let's say black sets up a trap and he plays king to g7. So, yeah, so the only move for white, again, they cannot take the knight because the pawn is going to be pushed forward. So king to g3. Now this move already forces black to push his pawn. And if for example, if the knight would be able somehow to jump to g5, those positions are won for black. So in those kind of endgames, if the pawn reaches the second rank, this is actually going to end up in a draw. So let's see an example. So king g6, king h1. Yeah. So there is nothing much you can do because the knight has to stay here to defend the pawn. Once you move it, then I take the pawn, and really the black king doesn't have any way to approach the pawn.
Because if the black king gets in, it's going to be staying there.
So wait, so if the knight is on g5 and the pawn on e3, what will be the method?
Yeah, so the technique is if you have a pawn up, now this way it didn't work. But if you have a pawn up, if you could jump with the knight, for example, to g5, the best way to defend the pawn is obviously from behind, because the king cannot get to him. But if the knight would be on g5 and you would leave the pawn on h3, this would be winning because the king can come in and there is no stalemate. Once you move the king, so imagine that the knight will be on g5. So once you bring your king all over to g3, then my king will be on h1. You're going to bring your knight to f1, which is going to take the h1 square, to f2. Check, and then you push h2, h1. Okay. Now, similar to this position, even if white has a pawn in addition to this, so for example, let's see if I can try to. for example, if in this position black would try to just bring his king very fast, so king g7, king takes c5, king f6, king d4, knight d1, king f5, knight c3, king f2, king f4, king g1, and basically it's impossible for black to drive the white king from the corner. Okay. Any questions about this line? All right. So we had a warm up. So now we are going to go to the advanced level. This was a warm up. Okay. Now we are going to be fighting for a draw once we have the knight. So let's see what is the strategy when we have a knight very, very far. And I know that we all have this fear, this nightmare, that we have a pawn. We got to this endgame with a knight, and we somehow need to stop his pawn. So right now it's an h6 pawn. It's a very dangerous pawn. I put it the farthest one. So in this position, it is white to move. So think about how, what is the way for white to draw this? Not so easy. This one is a tough one. So make sure you calculate till the end. Okay, so some hints. So basically, what we are striving to achieve is that if the knight is able to touch any one of those squares that the pawn is going to be moving to, then it's going to be a draw, except the h1. Because if you put the knight on h1, my king is going to come to g2 and capture the knight. So somehow, before it reaches one of those squares, the knight has to touch one of those squares. Now, how do we do it? That's a good question. That's the question for you. You guys following? Well, following the variation? Yeah. So the correct move in this position is knight to b4. Now, before I do that, let's see what the other. Well, knight c1 doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because the knight cannot move, cannot jump. Exactly. If knight c3 looks the most logical move, but unfortunately, after h5 and check on d5, we already discussed that the king has to move diagonally to the knight. That's when he is capturing and protecting those two key squares, f4 and e3. And now, really, the knight doesn't have, is too slow. Okay. So the correct move is knight to b4, h5, and knight c6. Okay. So the variation that we just looked at was if black plays h4, then now knight is going to e5. Now king f4 does not work because of knight g6, and that's it. We sacrifice the knight. And pretty much any other move, if king e4 or h3, then the knight succeeds in touching this square, the h2 square.
So back earlier, did the black king not have the chance to go diagonally at the knight?
Well, so here, I assume, yeah. So actually, it's a good point. So what is the best move here for black to do?
King e4.
Very good. Yes. King e4. This is the main line. So white to move. Knight d8, h4, king f5,
D4 check, right?
h3. Yeah, so this position, black's last move was king to e4. It's white to move, and white is trying to make a draw. Not so easy. You can get to f2, right?
Yeah.
But you get to h1.
Let's not lose.
I'm going to show this variation really quick. If we were trying to play king knight d8, right? Was the one? Here was a good idea, because if I push h3, then you have this fork. But I played king f5 here,
Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe it's
here. Now you got to f2, but remember, h1 is not good enough, because now the king comes here and king g2. So we have to use a different square. So let's make a bet. Right, so we need to make a move. Let's say we have we're on time pressure. I mean, we cannot calculate till the end. Probably even I wouldn't be able to calculate. So what will be your bet? There is knight. Obviously, the king move does not help us, right? It's too slow. So we have knight e7. There is knight d8, b4, a5, and b8.
I like knight e7 because then you can get there to stop it from going to h4.
Right, but he already is going to h4. It's too fast. Knight d8, okay. Okay, so let's look at those. So if knight e7, that's not in time, right? Here, let's try to bring in the knight. The king is again blocking the knight all the way, and that's it. So knight e7 doesn't work. Knight b8 is completely out of the way. It's too much. Knight d8. I assume the knight is going to come to e6.
And you can't push h3 now.
Right, we cannot push h3. But here, I think that was our first try. But now black.
Yeah, back fine. Yeah.
King f5. Check. And now king to g4. And I'll probably only try his knight e2, but that's it. He's going to push h2 next move. Right? Cannot prevent h3, h2. So
Knight f7 any better, or is it the same thing?
let's try this.
Knight d8, f7.
Knight f7, then king f4, right? Because I want to control e5 and g5. Yeah, that's probably h6 is in d6 already. I'm controlling all the squares. So good try. Now knight b4 is where we came from. So knight b4 we don't really want to go to d5 and d3. So knight b4 does not work. Hence, our only option, knight a5. Very difficult position. But the key idea is that the knight is going to get to this key square on c4. Okay, so let's see where is the knight going from c4. Now obviously if black pushes the pawn to h3, that's immediately a draw. Right. And knight f1. That's it. We touched the h2 square. That's all what we need. So h3 does not work. The best move for black is king to f3. Any other move, I would go to d2, f1. If king d3, I assume it's checking knight g4. So king to f3 is the best chance that black has. All right. Now the idea is that now if he plays knight d2, then king to g2. Actually, I'm sorry. If knight d2, king g2 this is a mistake because he has knight c4. So king e2 has to be played. And if knight e4, then h3. Looks like we got a pawn, but again, we're only touching the h1 square. So here I can play king f2. And the next move, king g2.
What was king g2 a mistake? If knight d2?
Good question. So yeah, it's not so easy to see, but this, then I can go back with the knight to c4.
Oh, I see. Then you go to e3 and g4.
Right.
Oh,
Either f1 or g4. Okay, so king f3. So we said knight d2 is not working because king e2, so that leaves us with the only option. Knight to e5 check. That's correct. So the king has to go diagonally, as we said, to the knight. King to g3. You cannot go to f4 because of knight g6. All right, so how to draw here, this position? There is drawing and there is losing. So 93.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Or I guess 92 then. 93, you just attack my knight.
so knight c4, h3, knight d2, but then I have king to g2.
Sorry, 93.
Okay, well at least we agree on something. We agree on knight c4, right? h3, and yeah, the drawing move is knight to e3. And so the knight is trying to come to g4 or f1 to control the h2 square. If knight to d2 looks similar, but now he's not coming to g4, he's only attacking this square. And after king g2, black is winning. So a pretty difficult endgame.
Knight to a5 seems like it's just taking the knight completely out of the game.
Yes, especially the first move as well. Knight to b4 was very difficult to see. Then knight c6. Yeah. Very, okay. So now you guys are warmed up for the next one. In this case, you were fighting against one pawn. Let's see if you can make a draw versus 2 pawns. But in this case, at least I'm going to give you the king into the game. I'm going to ease your pain. Okay, so in this position, black is going down. He has 2 pawns. You are playing white, and it's white to move.
And white can draw this.
Yes, miracles do happen. They,
Black going.
oh, black is going down this way.
King to b3.
Yeah, king b3, king e6.
Oh, king e6.
Knight, no, knight f6. I'm just going to take the knight. No.
Oh, you said. Oh, you went.
Yes. So king b3, king e6, king b4, king f5. If you take the pawn, then h5, and you're out of the square.
So you have to block that pawn and make, kind of put black in zone 2.
So the idea here is that, first of all, this b5 pawn is not a threat. But we need to get the knight out from h7 to fight the h6 pawn. Now, right now, we cannot move the knight. So we have to move the king. But the biggest question is where to move the king, a3, b3, b2, or b1. So we have to figure out what's the difference.
The king over to the knight and take it.
Very good. Yeah, so king b2 and king b1 do not work. I'm just going to show it real quick, because now I'm just going to take the knight. And h5. Again, we are out of the square. So that leaves us with only two options, b3 and a3.
I would do B3 so he doesn't get the tempo with the check.
The tempo with the check with b4.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting idea.
But if he checks and then we go over to B3, then he's in some trouble.
Oh, king b3. I don't know. What is the play?
Well, so let's try this. So as we said, king b3,
And he pushes the pawn.
king e6, right? I can't push the pawn because the knight is going to get out.
Right.
So king e6. So the idea is that now we need to get out the knight, our knight. Okay, but we have to calculate the route of the knight. Where is he going to go? So for example, knight f8, king f5, then what? Knight d7, right? The only move. h5. Then where the knight is going? c5. But now I have h4. And if you come to d3, you are not in time. And this position is losing for white. So,
How about after king b3, king b4, and h5, white plays knight f6? That's too late.
so the first move has to be king a3. Let's see what's the idea. King e6.
Oh, you wanna go knight b3 then? Okay, let's see the point.
Bingo. Check. King f5. King d7. So the king stays here to fight the pawn. But the biggest difference is that after knight c5, the knight is coming to b3. Okay, so we get to the same position, but in this case, the knight is going to b3. So let's see what is the difference. So knight b3, and now if h3. So how do we draw here? Knight d2, so h2,
Knight f1.
and queen.
I just saw that right.
Yeah, everybody can see that? That's correct. So knight to d2. That's the whole idea. Now, if I don't play h2, then I get to f1 and I touch the square. And that's enough for a draw. And if h2, then this is the whole point. Knight to f1, h1, and I get the queen. I can also probably make a knight,
I was gonna say, what if you make it a knight?
but I can check
And then take?
and king b4. just for the beauty. So the whole puzzle, it was a difficult puzzle, but the idea was to figure out that we have to bring the knight out and to see the route. How do we bring them? So king b3, this is why king b3 is losing, because we have to keep this square for the knight.
Is there a difference between king a3 and king b2?
Well, king b2 would probably lose because king f7. And now his king is coming to take the knight. So we're not in time.
Why can't he go after the knight if you play a3 then?
Well, then your king is closer. Good question. If king a3, then yeah, we are getting into the square. King d3. All right, hopefully guys you won't have any nightmares today, but I have some puzzles for you if you guys want to take some. Thank you for coming today, and I hope to see you for the rest of the classes this week.